If you're concerned about consumer protection, you don't want to miss this show. Stay tuned and listen to Attorney General Dana Nessel. Thank you for being here with us, Attorney General Dana Nessel. Appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Thanks so much for having me, Paula.
We thank you, and it's always nice when you take time from your busy schedule to join us. You've been in the AG's office since January 1st, 2019. So before we get into talking about consumer protection and all things related to consumers, tell us what's the one thing that surprised you in your tenure as AG?
Well, I'll tell you this, no matter where you go in the state and no matter what population of people you're talking to, it doesn't matter if you're, up in Marquette or on the west side of Muskegon or, in the metropolitan Detroit area, people have the same concerns. They have the same problems. They have the same issues. They have the same complaints. So we're actually a lot more alike than people think we are. And whatever our race, religion, creed, geography, or even income, most people have the same things in life that they're concerned about and that they hope that their government will accomplish for them or, support them in. So I just think that we're a lot more alike than people give us credit for.
Yeah, that's a good observation. Sometimes we divide ourselves and unnecessarily, right, in terms of what's important to us. So that's an excellent observation. And I know you have. I think we've labeled you as just a fighter for all the people. You are the people's attorney general. So as we talk about consumer protection today, in particular, what should people know about their consumer rights?
Well, firstly, I think it's important that people know that the Department of Attorney General is the place to go when you have a consumer protection related issue. Your local prosecutor's office, they might handle drug cases and firearm cases and other types of things of that nature. But really, when it's a consumer protection issue, it is the Department of Attorney General that you would turn to. And I will tell you this, my consumer protection team reviews every single complaint received by the office, whether it's an online complaint form or an email or a phone call. We answer every call. So the following complaint areas, I guess, really represent the vast majority of the types of complaints that we receive. So, for instance, internet, online purchases, computer communications technology, internet service providers. Those are ones that people are really concerned about. In retail, purchases that involve late deliveries or products that were never delivered, or complaints that are, about the purchase of appliances or furniture or other items that are defective and didn't work as advertised. We certainly get a lot of complaints about motor vehicles and automobiles, complaints about used car dealers, auto repair shops, new car dealers, passenger car rentals, things of that nature. And credit and financial concerns, that's a big one. So debt collection, credit repair, payday lending, things like that. But there are a variety of issues that we see here at the department. Personal service providers, dating services, beauty companies, fitness facilities, spas, home security, and tax preparation services. That's a big one. Health service providers, right? Health service providers like doctors, dentists, hospitals, medical clinics. Landlord-tenant disputes between renters and apartment owners or property management companies. Mobile home parks, that's a big one. And condo associations. Gasoline, fuel, and energy complaints we get against utility companies, gas stations, propane providers, contractors. We see that a lot. Residential building construction services or snow removal, landscaping services, plumbing, heating, air conditioning services, special trade contractors.
Wow.
And lastly, telecommunications, cable, and satellite TV complaints. And those can be against wireless communications, cable and satellite TV services, with most of the reports being about billing and service issues.
When you say that you look at every single complaint that comes in, or your team looks at every single complaint that comes in, and then just listing all those services, all those types of complaints, no wonder you always are so busy. I mean, that's a lot. It's a lot of different areas that people often don't think about. One of the things we at AARP think about a lot, and I know you do as well, and that's older adults. And many times older adults are more victimized by scammers, by fraudulent people than anyone. What advice, what's your office doing to help prevent that? I know you've been very passionate about that in the past as well. So what's going on to help prevent that from happening?
Well, one of the most important things I think that we're doing is, in 2019, we launched the statewide elder abuse task force here at the Department of Attorney General. And we brought together over 55 different senior advocacy organizations from the public, private, and nonprofit sectors to combat just the scourge, the rise of physical, emotional, and financial abuse that's been really difficult for our state's vulnerable adults. So, the culmination of several years of hard work, we were able to pass the Financial Exploitation Prevention Act, or FEPA as we call it, and that established banks and credit unions as mandatory reporters. And that law now requires financial institutions to delay transactions on seniors' accounts where they have reason to believe it might be exploitive in nature. And they also have to report it to local law enforcement and APS. So we included provision for comprehensive training to ensure the measure was properly implemented across our, very large state of over 10 million people. And since the law's passage, my office has provided over 20 live training sessions on this law to financial institutions, area agencies on aging, and other senior resource groups. And last year, we were able to pass another law that really built on the success of FEPA, including protections across the finance industry. And so now financial advisors and security brokers are included as mandatory reporters as well. And I know that the law is working because, my mom has fallen for more scams than I could possibly tell you. And fortunately, she's not lost money off of it because the bank always stops those fraudulent transactions from going through now because they have to train their people on that. So, we think that the task force is working and we're passing some good laws as a result of it.
And congratulations on getting that passed. I know we were supportive of that as well, that legislation as well, but you actually shepherded, and make certain that it got across the finish line. And I know there was a lot of lobbying against it by the financial community. So thank you for continuing to fight the good fight on behalf of older adults and just everyone really who might be victimized by those types of scams. One of the things that a lot of older adults particularly are concerned about, and that's AI, artificial intelligence, and what that can mean when they're putting their information online, how their identity is being stolen. Can you share a little bit of information about what's going on in the world of AI and those particular types of scams?
Yeah, it's just so scary, isn't it, Paula? I mean, and people are rightfully concerned about this, but our offices try to be on the vanguard of alerting consumers to the dangers that are posed by AI scammers. So, in December of 2023, I actually had some of my attorneys use publicly available software to create a fake AI version of my voice, and we actually did a live broadcast with local news reporters where my attorneys called people who knew me and used the fake voice to trick every single one of them. They all fell for it.
Wow.
And I did this just to highlight how dangerous AI can be in the hands of bad actors. We're all on alert now for calls or emails that come from strangers that we don't recognize. But what if that call came from your own family, or in this situation, from your boss? So in addition to spreading awareness to the public, my office has also joined some legislative efforts to regulate the use of AI and try to keep it out of the hands of bad actors. I mean, we have a long way to go to ensure that that technology is safe. But in the meantime, my office is committed to spreading awareness of the risks and hopefully stopping some of these scams before they harm consumers, and of course, advocating for good legislative solutions.
What would you say to people to keep them from being afraid to use the technology that could be so effective in so many ways? Just what advice would you give them? How can they just guard against, just one or two tips perhaps they can use to guard against becoming a victim of AI?
Well, I mean, we definitely tell people that it's okay to have conversations with people when you pick up the phone, but be careful what kind of information you're providing to somebody, even if it sounds exactly like somebody that you know, right? So don't be giving out your credit card or your social security number when your grandson calls you to talk about his baseball game. I mean, use common sense. And some of the programs, I mean, they can be pretty scary, and I understand why people are reticent. And I will say, like, even things like the note taking apps that are AI generated, we have seen situations where those kinds of technologies can actually lead to losses of finances. So I don't, it's I avoid using AI if I don't absolutely have to use it at this point. If I'm not sure and I haven't read reviews about it and I haven't looked or asked, law enforcement authorities what issues, if any, they've seen. But I guess I would say before you start using an AI program, read as much about that program as possible so that you can learn what it's going to do with all the information that you're putting into it.
So stay informed, educate yourself, and stay informed. Good
Yeah.
advice. Another area that affordable housing, just housing in general, tenants, evictions, um, rent being too high in some areas, just because of who's living there. I know your office has been involved in housing and looking at older adults, people, not just, I keep saying older adults because I'm AARP, but people in general who have been being evicted or threat of being evicted. Talk about that, would you please?
Now, our department, is very active in trying to protect consumers in the housing sector. So, for example, we are currently investing in a company that's called Easy Knock that essentially made tenants, people into tenants in their own homes that they own through something called a sale leaseback. And
Mm.
the consumers sought out our help because they were struggling economically. And we want to understand whether Easy Knock exploited or deceived these consumers in a way that would violate the Consumer Protection Act. And my office also holds landlords responsible for providing essential services and maintaining a safe and livable condition, uh, at that residence. So last month we entered into a settlement agreement with an apartment complex in Troy for its failure to provide adequate heat during extremely cold temperatures. So we try to do our best to make sure that people are safe and that people are compensated when they've been taken financially.
There are so many companies here that they hire small businesses, large businesses that hire people. And we've heard, and you've heard, and you've actually prosecuted some who just aren't as ethical as they ought to have been, or even doing things illegally. So, in terms of business fraud, I know that you have had a keen eye on that. What have you learned?
Well, we have two primary tools for addressing this. We can conduct formal investigations through subpoenas for documents and testimony, but to do that, we have to make a court filing where we demonstrate probable cause that someone has engaged in an unfair or a deceptive practice. Alternatively, we could just sue them, which we often do. So we sometimes just do that right away where the evidence is crystal clear to us and there's no need for a formal investigation. We, usually try to resolve our concerns about a business through an assurance
Mhm.
agreement. And when we enter into those, we're basically looking for a company to mend its ways, right? To make restitution to the consumers. That's what we care about the most. And to compensate the state for the time that we put into the project. So, we're looking out for Michiganders both as consumers, but also as taxpayers.
Yeah, speaking of that, there's one of our colleagues here purchased a used car, and 5 days later, the engine wasn't any good. I mean, it didn't know where to go. Didn't know what to do or what. So those are the kinds of consumer complaints that you want to hear about, you want to know about. The car dealer's not doing anything about it. There's just so many different areas, whether it's housing, whether it's someone who's repairing your driveway and taking advantage of you when you put deposit down and they don't show up. You want to hear about all those types of complaints, correct?
We do, but we have a really big case right now that's pending before the Michigan Supreme Court. It's actually against Eli Lilly, and it has to do with price gouging when it comes to insulin. Which, my gosh,
Yeah.
You can't
Yeah.
survive without your insulin if you're diabetic, right? So, what we're trying to do is expand the ways in which we can use the Protection Act in Michigan, which unfortunately has been confined by some really bad Supreme Court decisions. And we're trying to expand it also legislatively. And I only bring that up because there are so many different ways that other attorneys general in states all across the country can protect consumers that were more limited in Michigan. We still want to hear about it because we need to know so that we can have those conversations with the legislature to make sure that they are expanding our Michigan Consumer Protection Act so that we can protect as many people as possible.
It's one of the things I really appreciate about you as well in terms of reaching out and being collaborative with other states. We hope to do a show soon with the Attorney General from Arizona as well. But I mean, you've been doing that throughout your career, just trying to get that collaborative agreement with other states so there's more people can understand what's happening. It's not just Michigan. It's these scammers are all over the country, all over the world, quite frankly. One of the
Yeah.
areas that concerns us a lot is just the whole privacy issue. Putting data into a system. I've even gotten very cautious about what I respond to, and people always ask for information. What's your email, your birth date, your social security number? Sometimes that whole privacy law and private data and how that's used is a concern.
Yeah, it sure is. But, it's important to note that Michigan currently doesn't have a comprehensive data privacy law like many other states do. Um, and we desperately need one, right, to provide state level consumer rights
Mhm.
related to how our personal data is collected and used, and that these companies who have our information have an obligation to safeguard our data. So at least 20 other states have passed these kinds of laws. I've worked with the legislature on comprehensive data privacy legislation. Most recently, we had a Senate bill that actually passed the Senate in 2024, but didn't go any further, unfortunately.
Mhm.
We've also supported bills to amend the Michigan Identity Theft Protection Act to include a duty to safeguard consumers' personal information.
Mhm.
And that bill also passed the Senate in December, but unfortunately, it was never enacted. And neither issue so far has been introduced in the new term. But my office does partner with other states in bringing enforcement actions to hold companies accountable when they have lax security practices that lead to data breaches, or who fail to provide timely notice to impacted consumers. I mean, when your data's been breached, they ought to be telling you right away, not a year later, right?
Right,
Uh,
exactly.
so, for example, we joined a multi-state settlement with Marriott last year requiring strengthened data security practices and a $52 million payment to the states. And it stemmed from a guest reservation database breach. Another example is the multi-state settlement we joined with software company Blackbaud, which the company agreed to overhaul its data security and its breach notification practices, and also to pay $49.5 million to the states for its deficient data security practices in response to a ransomware event that exposed the personal information of millions of consumers all over the country. But
Wow.
separate from compliance, my office also issues frequent consumer alerts regarding significant data breaches when we become aware of them. And we do that to ensure that consumers can take proactive measures to help prevent identity theft. So examples are, for instance, our alerts on the Change Healthcare and Ascension data breaches, and immediate availability of free credit monitoring without consumers having to wait for an eventual data breach notice letter. And just a few weeks ago, we issued a press release regarding the 23andMe bankruptcy filing. This company, of course, was already under scrutiny for an earlier data breach, and that was for consumers to consider deleting their personal and genetic data in advance of the bankruptcy sale to some unknown third party. So it can be very scary.
Absolutely. We're really out of time, but just give our listeners, our viewers, where should they go to get information? What's the one website or place they can go to find out about their rights?
Well, my department has a dedicated consumer protection web page, which includes a very easily searchable library of all our consumer alerts. And there are resources to help residents learn about common scams, track the work of our department, and file a complaint if they need to. So I encourage every resident to take some time, scroll through what's there to offer on what's being offered on the website. And it doesn't matter how savvy you are, I guarantee you're going to learn something new that you didn't know before. So mi.gov/consumer protection.
I'm going to check it out right now. Thank you so much, Attorney General Nessel. Appreciate you and appreciate you always being responsive to our request to come on and share with our viewers. Thank you for all that you do, and go forward and fight for the people. Thank you.
Thanks, Paula.
Hello, I'm Tracy with Impart Alliance at Michigan State University. Today I'm joined by Dan and Jennifer Digman. Both Dan and Jennifer live with MS and all of its challenges, and we're here to talk about how direct care impacts your lives.
I would say since the moment Dan and I married, our marriage was possible because direct care. We're fortunate that we have someone that's with us 7 hours a day, and Jen, my caregiver at this time, can help with activities of daily living.
And I think that helps incredibly, because then I can continue working full time so that I go to work and then she has somebody there to help her. So then that puts my mind at ease, and it just really makes things more possible for us.
Absolutely. And I would imagine that opens up the door as well for your advocacy work around MS in general.
It does that, and not only that, just our day-to-day existence. If we want to go out in the community, if I want to go grocery shopping, if I want to go to church, and Dan and I can remain active and part of the community.
I think that's what's so important then too, with the caregiving throughout the day. Then when I get done with work at night, I don't have to go to the store or cook or anything. Not that I'm against cooking and shopping, but it's just that makes life a lot easier. So then at night I can focus on taking care of Jennifer and living life.
Absolutely, because after 5 o'clock, you're suddenly in the role of direct care worker.
Absolutely, and so that really helps me just through the day to have that, so I'm not burned out with that. So.
Well, thank you both for joining us. To learn more about direct care, visit impartalliance.msu.edu.
I want to talk today about why long-term care is so expensive. And back in the day, our grandparents kind of made it through sitting in a rocking chair on the porch. Why is it so much more expensive?
Yeah, Paula, let me put you in a rocking chair on a porch.
That's not going to work,
and we'll
David.
See how
I
well
said my
you like
grandparents. Right?
That's right, right.
Not even my parents.
Well, I blame ARP.
Oh, you do?
I do. I blame ARP because you kind of raised our expectations about what this part of life is going to be like.
It's great.
Now, well, it's a good thing. Yeah, I'm not really arguing with it. But as medical science has progressed, we're all living longer, and more importantly, we're living healthier, right? And as our expectations of what our life is going to be like is up, right? And so we're living longer, all the rest. But what we didn't do that our parents did was have a ton of kids.
To take care of us.
Right. There are 8 kids in my family, okay? None of it, I had 4. That was as far as it got, right? So the demand for services, the demand for care is going way up. There's this thing called the baby boom. You may have heard of it, right? So it's going up. We have high expectations, but we didn't have as many kids. So
supply and demand.
Supply and demand. Demand for services up, supply of caregivers down, plus the church lady who used to hang out and help out, she's not around anymore.
And the cost for a registered nurse is
$100 an hour. You want a registered nurse to come in. And of course you can always get the teenager, with the purple hair, she'll show up, or he'll show up, for $30 an hour. What are we supposed to do?
We're supposed to get more direct care workers into our homes. That's
There
what we're
you
supposed
go.
to do. All right, thank you, David. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Paul.
Prescription drugs, prescription medication, we take them, but we're not always certain about the side effects. What are the questions that we should ask? What do we need to know before we start taking a prescription medication?
That's a really, really good question. I ask everyone, and I've been guilty of this myself, is that when a physician writes you a new prescription, you're going to ask 2 questions. Is one, why are you writing this for me? And then the second one is, what is the exit strategy from this? Then you can ask about potential side effects. I found that a lot of my patients in general come in and I ask them about why are you on this drug, this drug, this drug. And I would say that the large majority of my patients can't tell me why they're on the medications or that they interact or don't interact. Now, I think that it's a very, very good practice for all patients is to always ask the doctor, why are you writing this for me, for what benefit, and how long will I be on it, and when can I get off of this med, if ever? What can I expect for side effects versus benefits? Always ask those questions every time.
And what happens if you aren't sharing with your physician or your pharmacist about other supplements that you might be taking that could interact with that prescription? How do you
You should
integrate
always
that?
let the doctors know what other supplements that you might be on. Most of them are genuinely fine and don't have a lot of interactions, but things like biotin that people do for their nails and their hair can actually mess with your lab work. It can actually be somewhat conflicting so that your blood work doesn't show properly because you're taking certain supplements. So always be open and honest even with supplements, which people don't think about as being a medicine, but it is.
What about multivitamins? Can they interact with?
They can, depending on how they're formulated, because there's iron and other things in them. But for the most part, multivitamins are made and manufactured specifically to be safe for almost all reasons with all medications. So pretty rare that you get too many side effects with multivitamins.
Appreciate that information. Thank you, Dr. June.
CATA's regional mobility solutions can help seniors seize the day. Hear what our riders and community leaders have to say about the value CATA brings to the lives of aging adults.
Well, my name is Patsy Dillard, and I'm a Spectran and a big CATA rider for the buses, and I enjoy riding Spectran, CATA. I've been riding for like 30 years now, and then I ended up in a wheelchair. So I'm riding the big bus, and I'm like, it took me a long time, like almost a year, when I had my chair that I wasn't test driving it on the bus. But I finally got enough courage and I started riding the bus, and I became a pro with it. Could turn, hit the right spots, and I really could bag up in there, and I really enjoyed riding. And if I had got a car, and I was like, it's more cheaper to keep riding the bus and it's more safer for me. So that's what I continue to do. And now I'm not in the wheelchair anymore, thank God. I graduated to a walker. Bus drivers on Spectran, they're like, yeah, you're still doing it, and it's been a year and a half now, and I've been walking on my own, and they always give me props, like, keep up the good work, and I love it. The wheelchair riders don't know that you can get in touch with Spectran or CATA system, and they'll give you little strips that go on your chair, where you can lock it onto your safety belt on the bus. So a lot of people that don't know that, that's cool. Well, Spectran, they pick me up door-to-door service, and I love that. And I can just walk right out my door and to my doctor's office, no hesitation, and I love it like that. The proof is in the pudding when they come and get me, so. Yes, CATA, just keep what you're doing, keep on doing it, because I love it, and there's no problem with it.
There's so much rich information that's shared today. Hopefully, you will share it with others. Thanks for watching Real Possibilities.